Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. As always, I'm your host here, Brian Doyle, and got a very fun conversation I think we're going to have today. It's about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, certainly near and dear to those that subscribe to vCISO Toolbox too. But I've got a true professional coming in that's going to come in and tell you a little bit more about why you should have a vCISO program and how to structure one. So with that, I'd like to welcome Jesse Miller from Power Grid Group to the table today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while now, and we both are very simpatico in terms of how we look at vCISO services. So yeah, and excited to be here and have this conversation today.
Yeah, I have to say I'm really excited about really getting to sit down and go a little bit more in depth than sometimes we get to do, catching each other in the hallway at a conference or in as we get a fly-by night, fly-by call during the week because, everybody's schedules are so busy. So this should be a good time. But I think there might be a lot of folks that don't know you. I'm sure there's plenty that do. Maybe you can give a little bit about your background, who you are, and how you ended up in the crazy world of MSP.
Yeah, so I tell people this story can be really long or really short, so I'll try and keep it somewhat short. Yeah, so was the CISO of an MSP for many, many years. Launched my first security program in 2014 and my first vCISO program in 2015. So this was back when you could barely Google vCISO,
Yep.
right? So we've helped build that MSP to about 75 and a successful exit. Ran the vCISO program for the acquiring MSP for about a year. And then that's when I went out and founded PowerPSA Consulting and the Power Grid vCISO system, where now I teach MSPs how to build scalable, profitable vCISO programs for their security programs.
And that's such a critical statement that you said right there, because one of the things that I encounter quite often is you see that MSPs are kind of giving away the product and they're not monetizing it. And this is a huge opportunity in our industry to expand MRR and really drive more value with our customers. But I don't know if the challenge is I don't feel confident enough in myself to go out and deliver this and charge for it. So by not charging for it, I'm taking a little risk off the table that way. Or if it's just I don't know how to monetize it. You talk to these folks every day. What are you seeing out there?
So let me just say yes to all of the above. But yeah, I think really how I've kind of referred to that in shorthand is like this tinkering approach, right? So I see a lot of MSPs that are tinkering in that they have some customers that maybe required HIPAA or PCI, and so they're helping with that. Insurance questionnaires are becoming more of a prevalent thing now that they're helping with. And so then they say, let's do a vCISO program or a security advisory program, whatever you want to call it. And the problem is there's no clear idea of what that should actually look like, because it's a degree of separation from traditional managed services. Now, I think managed service providers are the best position to deliver this service for value for their clients. We can talk about that later, but it is a little bit of a different animal. And I think the main thing, if I could condense this and say the main problem that I see is it requires a very precise go-to-market approach. And that's in terms of how we position, how we package, how we price. Because there are infinite permutations of what a vCISO service could be. And so if we don't put clear edges on that and make it super attractive to the client so that they're very clear on like what you're getting with this, we get ourselves into all sorts of problems. We end up oversubscribed on the service, giving it away for free even, or just undervaluing it. Yeah, and then that translates into service delivery problems. We can't scale it. So we get into one of two things. We're trading dollars for hours, right? Where we can't scale that because we just have to throw expensive bodies at it. And as we grow, our margins shrink. So we see this kind of logarithmic curve where it should be this kind of a curve, right? And so I think all those things contribute to kind of the consternation with many MSPs when it comes to this type of service.
And I think one of the things that I've seen too is a lot of them think just by getting the tool stack in there, they've accomplished what they need to do with the vCISO. And I think, there's a lot of leadership opportunity for the MSP to grow into, which also enhances the value of the package. And, obviously we can get into the true things, the governance side, the policy side, the procedure side that comes into it. But I do want to focus on something you said a few moments ago. cyber insurance is really driving the need. I think that's a very big statement because I think everybody thinks of these programs as being, well, my customer needs to have a compliance requirement.
Ah,
But I'm seeing more and more it's, no, I want to make sure I don't fall into that category of 4 out of 10 getting rejected or carved out when I have a claim. What are you seeing there?
well, I'm specifically, I'm almost dogmatic about about this, and so at the risk of offending half your audience, I would say positioning a vCISO type service as compliance as a service, I think is actually the wrong way to go to market with it, because what happens when you say compliance as a service, a customer looks at it and says, "Well, I don't have any compliance requirements. I don't need that," and they immediately dismiss it. Now, whether you're then doing education and helping them, that initial perception, and I think, we people joke about lizard brain. Right? It's like immediately they decided I don't need that, and so now they're predisposed to talk themselves out of it. So I think compliance should be a piece of what is underneath a security advisory program. And so I think it's especially important now when you talk about cyber insurance, is that the requirements are becoming increasingly more stringent and increasingly more nuanced. And so it's not just fill out what you have. Okay, we'll give them an hour to fill out the thing. It's no, if we don't fill this out accurately and with a true knowledge of what their risk in their environment is, all of a sudden we put them in a position where they could have claims denied or have partial
Yeah.
claims denied because we didn't actually give focus to this.
And that's unfortunately one of the bigger things that we've seen, heard, and experienced from our seat is, it's the shadow IT components that come into play that don't have MFA on it and become the culprit that allow that data breach to occur or that data loss to occur. And these things are all done innocently. And I think that's an important thing, too. There's nobody maliciously going out there fraudulently filling out this application.
Right.
It's just they don't really understand the depth of what they need to do to really defend and protect.
Well, so let's put this into pragmatic terms, right? Of how do we apply this? And one thing I always say to think about is,
Yeah.
okay, but the question that you're always going to get on a cyber insurance questionnaire is, do you have MFA on? Well, that is not a yes or no question. And so I say, true governance, what a governance program does for an organization is give a really reasoned answer that allows them to underwrite coverage but protects you. So yes, we say yes, we do have MFA on, and then we give context for that answer. We have MFA on, and we seek a 98% compliance rate with that. Certain accounts, such as admin accounts that are break glass in case of emergency, do not have MFA access but are protected by 25 plus character passwords, logging and auto alerting whenever that account is authenticated. And then there may be certain user accounts for onboarding and new user accounts that don't have MFA on as they're configured. This is why we're saying yes, and these are the metrics we're supporting it with. So now, if they underwrite coverage with that yes, there's no wiggle room for the insurance company to say, well, you didn't have it on 3, so you didn't have MFA on, right? We explained to you what our yes meant, and that's you get that with a vCISO, right?
Yep. And I think those are the things that the true, look, most of our community in the MSP space tends to be the small to lower mid-size organizations. They're maturing themselves in many cases, right? They're still on the early stage of the startup journey sometimes. And when you look at those folks, you can't expect them to have that level of depth, that level of knowledge that our MSP partners kind of routinely understand, right? Is even if they're not doing VC, so they're usually looking at those kind of rules when they're configuring and delivering. But now you have to say to yourself, there's value in that. And, that's a big part of, I think, what you're bringing to market. Maybe you can talk a little bit about, I'm an MSP and I want to start positioning a program. What's the first thing I should be thinking about?
Market research. So, one thing we take people through is a detailed ICP build out, and everybody and their mother has their own ICP build out, right? So, but ours includes not just default firmographics and demographics. We get into the default or the detailed psychographics of our target client. Not only that, we have a very detailed process of let's go interview some of our best clients, and we have questions that then draw out what would they want in a vCISO service, and if we are offering it now, why do they want it? And I had just recently, something sticks in my mind. I had a member of ours go through this, And they had a pretty good go to market, right? But they sat down and they said, once I went through this interview process with my clients, they told me things that I wasn't even thinking about. And so it actually helped them create a separate value pillar that really speaks to the target client they want to go after. So to answer your question, when you think about market research, your clients, I call it a value bridge, right? Your clients' pain points and goals need to line up with your value pillars. So many times I see on a website where it's like, we do best in class risk assessments and tabletops and we do all these things. Well, that's what we do. Does your client really care about that? No, they care about closing deals. Do their customers trust them? Can they use security as a sales advantage? They care about resilience, like what happens if I'm down, and they care about legal and liability protection, right? And then maybe compliance if they have compliance, which is why I say like that's like an add-on to our VC
Yeah.
package.
Well, I mean, really, it's the end game of doing all those steps.
Yeah.
If you take all those steps one by one, stack them up, and accomplish them, you shouldn't have a difficult time checking the boxes, so to speak, in the framework assessment and providing adequate evidence to get through that
Yeah.
process.
And you can tell I get excited when I talk about this stuff.
Well, we both do, right? I mean, it's one of these things where I think I get excited because I see a huge opportunity for my customers. There's this opportunity for them to mature, expand revenue. A lot of what we talk about on this show is not just, things that you can bring to market, but also the exit, right? And at the end of the day, this is a great opportunity to really, level up your revenue. I mean, truly, you can 2x your revenue pretty quick if you do this appropriately. And, rather than finding another customer, just growing from within.
Yeah, our tagline is add 7 figures of revenue with vCISO services. And I've seen that happen. Our members do it, and it's and it can be much more than that depending on how big your client base is too, right? So
Yep. And for all you guys that say I can't get that talent on my team, go get 7 figures worth of contracts. You're not going to have that problem anymore, right?
So that's all what I say. I'm like, our metrics that we want to target in the program is like a vCISO should be able to run between $400,000 and $500,000 of revenue, right? So think about 60% gross margins with that number, 50% gross margins on software. You can easily afford someone in the 175 to 185 range as a practice lead who is going to be a dynamo and is really going to run that for you, right? Again, we provide scorecards and all the things that you need to do to hire the right type of people for that. But you can also grow people into that role too. So I always say, make somebody accountable and have them start working on it. And if you have somebody that's going to do that or not.
Yeah, and more than likely, if you grow somebody into that role, you're also going to save some money in the process. But you've got to invest into them. You have to invest into them. You can't expect them to go, watch some YouTube videos and come out of vCISO because. Right. Realistically, and I think you'll echo this. It's if you don't put it into practice, you don't know where the gaps are going to be. And the reason I joked earlier, when you and I were talking, it's been a while since I've been in the CISO role. My last CISO job was pre-ransomware almost at that point. So, this industry, the paradigm shifts every 3 to 5 years. And if you're not actively staying up on it, I mean, we are within my organization. I'm just not the lead on that anymore. It really can be tough to catch up, and you need some guidance to bring this to market.
Well, and it's so funny, like, not funny, but it's interesting. When I built this whole thing, I basically just sat down and said, what did I want 10 years ago as a CISO when I built my own program, and what questions did I have? And I wish I had a place to go get these answers. And people say, well, yeah, the system's great, but the community's even better. And so it's just interesting for me to see that kind of organically develop. You said something earlier about the opportunity for MSPs and the client size that I wanted to touch on. This is also something that, why I say to lead with it, that can open up new market areas for MSPs, and it can serve as entry points into clients. So I've seen this both on the bad side and on the good side, where I've been talking to MSPs and they're saying, yeah, we're not quite ready. I don't think we're going to do our vCISO program yet. And then they come back in 6 months and say, you know what, our biggest client just left us because their compliance advisor said go with this other MSP who's more security focused, right? And then that same MSP, actually, and this is a specific case I'm thinking about, after 6 months in the program, offset another MSP because of the same thing. They came in and said, and the client said, wow, you really know your stuff in terms of like security governance, and you have the IT side to help execute it all. done deal, right? So they went from the hunted to the hunter. But I think there's opportunity. So you think about SDRs making calls and
Yep.
salespeople making calls, and you go into opportunities, and what do we hear a lot of the time? Oh no, we already have an MSP. Our contract's not up for another year and a half. And instead of saying, oh, too bad, let us know how it goes, I'll check in, you can say, oh, that's great. I'm glad you got that figured out. We actually offer vCISO services. We are an MSP. We know how to work with other MSPs. So we can help provide that security. You know, you can ask them the question,
Yeah.
how are they handling security? How are you handling advisory? Oh, we offer that. So now you've got a foothold into that client. And we all know that a year and a half down the road, if you really do deliver that value, like we talk about, you're going to be positioned very well to pick up the rest of the business.
Yeah. And I think you touched upon a really big thing there. If you don't do it, somebody else will, right? And that's a big part of it. And I think the other thing, and this ties to your market research discussion too. One of the things that I find always kind of surprising when I'm talking to the customers that come in, whether they come in from the VCIO slant or the vCISO slant into our platform, is they did not know their customers, or the customers did not know they, as a service provider, wanted to be more strategic with them. And our biggest challenge has always been in the MSP space, being viewed as a commodity.
Yeah.
You have to separate yourself from the pack. And this is a perfect opportunity, because when those customers come in, the core tenet to our product, not to go down that road, is building a joint strategic plan with the customer so you can demonstrate outcomes. And if you don't have that, to me, like, how do you even get to the yes, right? But realistically, the point is, a lot of customers are like, oh, I didn't know you guys wanted to understand this. We were actually looking for somebody to do this with us. Wow, if I wouldn't get scared when I'd hear my customers say that, there's a big problem. So, there's really this opportunity to level up, as we discussed earlier. I'll pass it to you here. How are you kind of handling that portion of it? Like that customer that doesn't think they can elevate with their customer, or that MSP that doesn't think they can elevate.
I hear, and you're right. This is a pretty prevalent. Our customers aren't interested in that. I'm like, well, how do you know? If you really talked about it in a way that is interesting to them.
Well, they don't like spending money. Well, maybe you haven't seen the value in what you're trying to get them to get.
Yeah, no, it's so true, and I think that's one of the motions. We all know that it's much easier to sell to your current clients than it is to go get new business, and I think so many MSPs don't think that's the case, but I'm just telling you, the numbers bear it out every time.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember very vividly when we launched our vCISO program 10 years ago. I sold vCISO package to a 12-person nonprofit. Okay, what is the general thing we hear? Nonprofits are cheap.
They have no money to spend.
Minimum, right?
Nothing.
What they do understand, though, is a board and a risk approach. Okay, so if we had said, they're not going to want that, and not went and talked to them, we would have been $3,500 MRR additional out, right? So we just would have thrown away that money. Now, so this is, again, something that we teach is like, you have to go through what we want you to go through is level setting with every single one of your clients and yes, different clients have different levels of maturity, and a client paying you, $2,000 for managed services may not go with a $2,500 or a $3,500 minimum bare bones vCISO package on top of the security spend, but they may. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, like, they understand that we're in a different world, and this is business risk at the end of the day if you position it properly. So the idea is to go get all of your customers' risk assessments using a good tool.
Hey, look, any tool out there, I'm not saying we're the only game in town, but you should be doing this. I mean, that's really the thing, that the drum we need to beat
And
loudly.
level setting. Now, these may be hard conversations, right?
Yep.
But what I tell people, the way to position this is show them the risk number without your IT services, and then show them the risk number with your IT services, and then show them the risk number they should probably be at. So if we're just doing a basic stoplight percentage risk to start for immature customers, okay, without our IT services, you'd be at 95% risk. Okay, that results in like ransomware. You're probably going to get ransomware within a year if you didn't have our IT services. Now, with our IT services, and you're probably doing some security things like EDR or whatever the case may be, you're at like a 60% risk, right? So still, there's where we like to see clients is at like a 30% risk. So there's a delta of about 30%, right? You don't have governance, you're not proactively thinking about risk, and you're actually maybe wasting money on cyber because you're not directed spending where the risk is. So here's the delta. We've we've already helped to say, to eliminate that "don't you already do that for us" question, right? Because we showed them what we're doing
Yep.
for them and where the delta is, and say, and oh yeah, and we have services that actually help eliminate all of this, mitigate this risk. So vCISO being one of those. That's the reason for the security program. That helps you with your spend and your trust and your insurance and all that stuff. That's upfront positioning, and then all these other security services we could offer. So they may say, all right, well, this seems like a lot. Where can we cut? Or, which is actually a good conversation to be having. If they're saying like, this seems expensive, like how can we shape this package to maybe make it work? That's a buying sign, right?
Yeah.
So we don't take vCISO off the table. We might say, okay, well, we won't do vulnerability management because that's a costly thing, or you might not need a SIM today, right? But then we get into this now rotation with the customer, which you're very familiar with from the VCIO tradition you guys come from, right? Is now we're in this QBR type risk conversation where we're having that and we're helping the customer plan, proactively think, they're getting value. We've created that flywheel cycle with them.
But you've also hit upon exactly the way we share with people to approach it. It's identify the risk, put a prioritization schedule to it, because more than likely your customer's not going to be able to bite off on everything day one anyway.
Yep.
And then make sure make sure you're driving home the message that these are the risks they have to be most concerned about today. So those things stay the A priority and don't fall to a C-level priority,
Absolutely.
So some conversations go by super quick, man. We're getting near the end of our time today, but Jesse, what are some of your closing thoughts? You've seen some wins, you've seen some losses. What are some of the things that you can share with an MSP who might just be considering this and is having a tough time getting off the dime, if you will?
Yeah, so I think a couple of quick things. You said if you don't do this, somebody else will. Right. This is the market is asking for this now. I think there's certain reports I've seen that have said that MSP, like by 2026, 98% of MSPs will have this at least on their website. Right. Yep. So you need to have an answer for it. That's number one. But then number two, I think you really need to understand who your target client is and really get focused on creating unique value props for that target client. This is less of a shotgun approach and more of a precise, let's call it target shooting.
Yeah.
Right. So those might be the two things that I would say to think about.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think the market is ready for this now. That's the big thing. And it's coming from insurance. It's coming from their customers asking them because they have downstream considerations. Yeah. As we record this, we're still in our shutdown period, but CMMC is still real. And those kind of things are still real where, those third-party vendors are going to be involved in this chain of custody. And as a result of that, it's why it's the greatest time, I think, for MSPs to really shift gears. And when they go to the next generation, security is never going to go out of style. AI will be the next catalyst that moves you there. But those that embrace this advisory role are really going to take that next jump.
Preach.
Yeah. Well, I don't have to preach to you, I know, but I think if it's innovation, it's being part of it. But really, this is security's never going out of style. We were talking about security. Look, man, I got gray hair on my head, right? I was selling this stuff in 95, 96, and even then, security was part of the story. But at every step of the way, it's become increasingly larger part of the story, and that's really the real key.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right.
The lines between security and IT are getting blurred, and that security is now expected of IT.
And some later date, we'll have to do an episode just on governance, because if you don't have the right safeguards to watch over all this, none of it matters anyway. If somebody's not checking in on that, it's just vapor, right? Yeah. Well, Jesse, I really appreciate you joining me. This is a fun conversation for me. It's obviously something we're both passionate about. So hopefully that came out in our conversation to you listeners. As always, I say, listener, if you're looking to get this, we post this up to YouTube. Go subscribe to our channel, ring the bell, as they say, and then it's also available anywhere where you download your podcasts. Jesse, I want to thank you again for joining us today, and I want to thank you for what you're doing inside the industry. I think you were one of the first people kind of beating the drum on this and bringing awareness to it. I'm a big believer. We got to make the masses know before we worry about ourselves, right? Yeah. And really be a good servant to the community. And you've done a great job of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as always, great chatting with you. We could make this go an hour, hour and a half.
Oh, easily. But the best part is you can always come back.
Yeah, I plan to.
All right. Thanks, Jesse.
All right, thanks.
Enjoy. Bye now.